highlights of Vietnamese economy in 2014. Reviewing efforts in maintaining macroeconomic conditions in 2014 and outlook for 2015. Hello and welcome to the year-end episodes of Bizline. I'm your host, Minh Hằng. It has been an eventful and quite successful 2014 for Vietnam as the country stabilizes its macroeconomy amidst ever stronger global integration. We have more on that in the later sessions of our program. First, let's kick off this special episodes with some highlights of Vietnam's economic scene in the past 12 months.
Vietnam's GDP growth in 2014 is estimated at 5.93%, higher than the targeted 5.8% and the rate of 5.43% in 2013, according to estimates by the Ministry of Planning and Investment. Meanwhile, the growth of the Consumer Price Index in 2014 is only 4.09%, lower than the target of 7% set by the National Assembly. This makes 2014 the year with the lowest inflation rise in a decade.
Vietnam received a new wave of foreign direct investment or FDI in 2014. As of mid-December, registered FDI has reached $20.23 billion, thus surpassing the year's target of $17 billion. Most notable are Samsung's high-tech projects, which make it the biggest investor in the country, with $11.7 billion in registered capital. Other technology giants like Microsoft and LG have also shifted investment to Vietnam in 2014. The consumer goods sector, particularly fast food, has also attracted foreign investors, as evident in the expansion of Starbucks and the entry of McDonald's. The retail market also saw new FDI inflows from big names like Berle-Jucker, Aeon and Lotte.
Vietnam records a trade surplus for the third consecutive year in 2014. Latest figures from Vietnam Customs show that as of mid-December, total exports are estimated at $142.68 billion, with the FDI sector accounting for over $89 billion. Phones and spare parts continue to lead in terms of export value, followed by garment and textile and footwear. Meanwhile, the total import turnover until mid-December has reached $140.29 billion. The resulting trade surplus is estimated at $2.39 billion. The FDI sector alone witnessed a trade surplus of $9.52 billion.
The amended investment and enterprise laws were passed by the National Assembly in November. Instead of specifying business lines that are allowed, the investment law now specifies prohibited business lines. The new law also provides in greater detail investment incentives, principles and procedures, as well as a new, more selective mechanism for awarding projects. Another positive point is that the time for granting investment licenses will be shortened to 15 days, down from 45 days. The amended enterprise law introduces a number of new regulations for the registration of business lines, corporate management, business sales, and so on. The amended laws will take effect on July 1st, 2015.
On December the 15th, Vietnam and Customs Union of Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan signed a joint statement announcing the conclusion of negotiations for the free trade agreement between the two sides. Earlier, on December the 10th, during Prime Minister Yoon's working visit to Republic of Korea, a memorandum of agreement to conclude negotiations on their Vietnam-Korea free trade agreement was signed. It is expected that the official signing of the two agreements will take place in early 2015, thus bringing the total number of Vietnam's free trade agreements to 10.
The Vietnamese government has set a goal of equitizing 432 state-owned enterprises, or SOEs, by 2015, which made 2014 a busy year for SOE restructuring. As of the end of November, nearly 80 SOEs have undergone equitization. Among the most prominent initial public offerings were those by the Vietnam National Textile and Garment Group, or Vinatex, and national flag carrier Vietnam Airlines. Another highlight in SOE restructuring this year has been the separation of Mobifone from telecom group VNPT.
In July 2014, Moody's upgraded Vietnam's credit rating from B2 to B1 with a stable outlook. The raise reflects the country's recent track record of macroeconomic stability, the strengthening of its balance of payments, and the easing of contingent risk in its banking sector. In early November, Fitch also raised Vietnam's rating from B+ to BB-, with the long-term outlook revised to positive from stable. According to Fitch, the ratings can be improved if Vietnam can control its fiscal deficit and improve transparency in the banking sector and among state-owned enterprises.
Global crude oil slumped to nearly $50 near the year end, from $110 in July. In light of this, Vietnam's petrol went through 12 price cuts, falling from a record high $1.20 per litre in July to about 81 cents per litre on December the 22nd, a decrease of nearly 30%. The current petrol price is at the lowest level in 3 years, and consumer prices have fallen as a result. However, Vietnam might face lower budget revenue by several $billion as crude oil production and export contribute up to 30% of the state budget, experts say.
The Vietnamese government has given top priority to maintaining macroeconomic conditions rather than growth over the last couple of years. As a result, inflation rate has been kept low at 6.8% and 6% in 2012 and 2013 respectively, and this year's at 4.09%. GDP has been hovering above just 5%. Analysts say the macroeconomic pictures for 2014 became more attractive for both local and foreign businesses. In this last edition of Bizline for 2014, it is our honor to have in our studio with us today Mr. Tomoyuki Kimura, Country Director of the Asian Development Bank here in Vietnam, to talk more about the Vietnamese government's effort in stabilizing the macroeconomy this year and outlook for next year. But first, let's take a look at the following short clip.
Entering the year 2014, the Vietnamese economy set a number of targets, including GDP growth of 5.8%, inflation rate of 7%, total export turnovers increase of 10%. After 12 months of regulating, the results achieved are very positive. Latest figures by the General Statistics Office show that GDP growth for 2014 is estimated at 5.98%, the highest level in 4 years. Meanwhile, inflation is kept at 4.09%, a lowest level in a decade. As the government is evaluating the next socio-economic development plan of 2016 to 2020, the results from managing the economy in 2015 will play an essential role in setting the next 5-year development targets.
It's a pleasure to have you in our studio with us today. Now, 2014 was regarded as a successful year in terms of government regulating the macroeconomic conditions, and latest figures by the General Statistics Office pointed out that inflation for 2014 was at 4.09% year on year. That is lower than the 7% set by the National Assembly. What do you make of this number?
Well, this inflation, even lower than the initial target, is largely as a result of a sound macroeconomic management. So I think we should really commend the government for achieving basically third consecutive year of macroeconomic stability. But of course, there are some external factors such as stable food prices and also falling the fuel prices. Perhaps we should not be too optimistic because another contributing factor to lower inflation is a weak domestic demand.
Regarding GDP, estimated GDP is at 5.9% in this year. That is also higher than the National Assembly target of 5.8%. Should we be optimistic about this number?
Well, it is very encouraging to see the country has achieved this level of GDP growth while maintaining macroeconomic stability. And this is largely as a result of, again, the external sectors, including the foreign trade and also foreign direct investment. But also, we have seen some signs of recovery in domestic economy. For example, we have seen some pickup in manufacturing, construction, and the retail sectors. The export-led growth itself, of course, is not bad, given the development stage of this country right now. But the challenge is the export growth is largely driven by the foreign direct investment foreign companies. So spillover to the local economy has been still very limited.
Okay. On the foreign exchange front, the foreign reserves have been stable this year, and Vietnam doesn't see a lot of shortages in foreign reserve towards the end of the year like previous years. How do you assess the SPV effort in maintaining the stable foreign exchange rate this year?
Yeah, like in the case of low inflation, this is also as a result of the sound macroeconomic management. On the monetary policy front, State Bank of Vietnam has maintained a positive interest rate on dong assets, and also on the fiscal front, government has been curtailing the expenditure for less prioritized public investment, also inefficient state-owned enterprises.
Vietnamese dong and US dollars saw a marginal exchange rate adjustment of around 1% over the course of 2014. This stability in the exchange rate and efforts to stabilize the market have been a success for the government. MK Smart is a card solution provider. The company now produces SIM, membership cards, and credit cards, along with mobile payment services. Each year, MK Smart spends around 1.5 to 4 million US dollars to import PVC plastic, chip modules, and inks, with revenue from export reaching 5.5 million US dollars in 2014. The enterprise performance relies on the effects of exchange rate changes.
Công ty chúng tôi thì có kế hoạch là thúc đẩy mảng xuất khẩu. Ví dụ như là năm 2012 thì chúng tôi chỉ xuất khẩu khoảng 15%, năm 2013 thì chúng tôi đã tăng lên khoảng 40%, năm 2014 là chúng tôi đã đạt là 55% tỷ lệ xuất khẩu. Chính cái sự bình ổn về tỷ giá thì giúp chúng tôi là có cái nguyên vật liệu đầu vào ổn định và cạnh tranh được với các nhà cung cấp khác trên thị trường.
According to experts, 2014 has been a successful year in the government's management of foreign exchange rate market. After a year maintaining a US dollar dong exchange rate of 20,036 Vietnam dong, the average interbank exchange rate was adjusted to increase by 1% on June 19th. This is still far lower than the State Bank's initial commitment to maintain the trading band at 2%. The result is mostly attributable to the trade surplus recorded this year.
Cán cân thương mại của Việt Nam trong năm 2014 đã có cái thặng dư kỷ lục cỡ khoảng 2 tỷ đô la Mỹ. Thông qua đó thì chúng ta có cái thặng dư cán cân thanh toán cỡ vào khoảng 10 tỷ đô la Mỹ. Và nhờ vậy thì cái dự trữ ngoại hối của Việt Nam đã lên tới cái mức kỷ lục cũng trong năm 2014 này, xấp xỉ khoảng 40 tỷ đô la Mỹ. Đó là cái nguồn lực rất tốt để chúng ta nếu cần thì có thể là can thiệp vào cái thị trường ngoại hối.
Normally, export enterprises will benefit more when the dong weakens. But according to experts, as the macroeconomic factors like inflation have been kept under control, exchange rate adjustment policy has proved to be a positive instrument to facilitate both export and import enterprises in Vietnam. In a recent banking conference, the State Bank Governor Nguyễn Văn Bình set a target to maintain the exchange rate between the US dollars and the Vietnamese dong within a 2% band next year. This marks the third consecutive year that the State Bank of Vietnam has stabilized the exchange rate within a 1% floating band.
One of the government's efforts in 2014 was to push forward the state-owned enterprises reform. So what do you think about that process of a state-owned enterprises reform in 2014, and what will be the lessons going forward for 2015?
Yeah, there has been some tangible progress. For example, most of the large SOEs, they have prepared a restructuring plan, and those plans have been approved by the government. There has been some improvement in the legal and regulatory framework. For example, now government allows the SOEs to sell the non-core asset under book value. This is expected to help SOE divest their the non-core asset in the future. Also, there has been sort of a consolidation or streamlining of the reporting requirement, basically on the financial performance of SOE. So this is expected to improve the information disclosure on the SOE performance. And then some SOE, they have gone to the market for IPO. Of course, the results were sort of mixed, but these are the some major development in this very challenging agenda. But I would like to say, so far, government has been measuring the progress in the state-owned enterprise reform in terms of number of equitization. But actually, I think government should more focus on quality of equitization, because equitization is just a means. Ultimate purpose to improve the efficiency of the SOEs. So equitization should be done in such a way that it will bring in basically strategic partners together with advanced technology, know-how, and also higher corporate governance standard.
Okay. So in a bigger pictures, how do you think Vietnam has performed in comparisons with similar economies in the region?
Well, I think Vietnam has done a great job. I'm really encouraged to see that government has been maintaining its policy. Basically, top priority is maintaining the stability, the macroeconomic stability. So, but while doing that, they have been able to increase the growth to almost close to 6%. Okay. So this is very encouraging and commendable.
The resolution of Socio-Economic Development Plan 2015 was issued by the National Assembly during the November meeting session. Accordingly, the National Assembly set GDP growth for 2015 at 6.2%, while inflation will be maintained at 5%. Total export is expected to increase by 10%. Investment for socio-economic development will account for 30 to 32% of the country's GDP. Also in the resolution, the first and most important point being reiterated was regulating the macroeconomy and focusing on removing difficulties for business operations. In addition, more reform to shift economic model towards better growth, higher efficiency, and more competitive will be implemented. As the government is evaluating the next socio-economic development plan of 2016 to 2020, the results from managing the economy in 2015 will play an essential role in setting the next 5-year development targets.
What do you think are some of the external elements in the world economies in 2015 that would affect the conditions of the Vietnamese economy next year?
There are, of course, some very important external factors. First of all, the plunging oil prices. This is a major factor. In fact, Vietnam is already a net oil importer, so this will basically benefit Vietnam. And also, the major trade partners of Vietnam, US, Japan, and Europe, they will be also benefited from the falling oil prices. So Vietnam may have some indirect benefit from these trade partners. Of course, other a major factor is it's a weak Russian economy and its currencies. It may have some spillover on Vietnam, but I don't think it will be very substantial. On the other hand, the U.S. also one of the major trade partner, particularly export destination of Vietnam. The U.S. economy has been stronger, currency has been stronger, so this will have a positive impact on Vietnam.
Okay.
The slowdown of the Chinese economy may pose more risk to Vietnamese economy because China is now the major trade partner to Vietnam. Yeah.
Okay. How about people been talking about rising in labor costs in China, and that would make Vietnam more attractive for multinational corporations. Do you think this would be the case for 2015 going forward?
Well, still. No, this competitiveness to attract the foreign direct investment, we should look at the various aspects, not only the labor cost. But so far, Vietnam has been taking advantage of its labor cost to attract the FDIs. But recently, also the labor cost, like a minimum wage of Vietnam, has gone up. So if you compare the labor cost of the large cities like Ho Chi Minh or Hanoi to China, the difference is not very big. So definitely, Vietnam should continue its effort to strengthen its competitiveness, not just in terms of labor cost, but also in terms of overall investment, the climate. Toward 2015 ASEAN economic integration, this competition within the region to attract FDI is going to be more and more severe. Okay. So it will be the opportunity for Vietnam, but also it could be a challenge. Yeah.
Speaking of global integrations, Vietnam already finished FTA negotiations with South Korea, and next year Vietnam will continue to negotiate FTA with the EU and also the TPP. How would that create a challenge for Vietnam in managing the macroeconomic conditions here in the country?
These FTAs and the subsequent reduction in the trade tariff would definitely provide increased opportunity for Vietnamese firms to penetrate into more lucrative export market, and it will also help them attract more foreign direct investment, bringing advanced technology and higher corporate governance standard. I think the challenge for Vietnam is to maximize the spillover, the benefit from increasing the trade. Right now, the value addition by the Vietnamese the domestic sector to the export is very limited because a linkage between local domestic sector and the FDI companies is very weak. Okay. So how to develop the private sector, particularly the small and medium enterprises, so that they can play a more important role in the value chain, adding more value, that would be very important for Vietnam to take most advantage of this widening international trade opportunities.
Okay.
2014 marks an important milestone in Vietnam's global economic integration. Notably, as the end of the year approaches, Vietnam and South Korea wrapped up the last round of negotiation in Busan, South Korea, and signed a minutes on the conclusion of negotiations of a bilateral free trade agreement, or FTA, which will bring benefits for both sides.
Những lĩnh vực mà Việt Nam hiện nay đang có cái lợi thế và có lợi ích cơ bản, trong đó như là dệt may, như là da giày, như là thủy sản và một số cái hàng hóa chế biến, thì Hàn Quốc mở cửa rất là rộng cho sản phẩm của Việt Nam. Và như vậy thì trong thời gian tới, những lĩnh vực công nghiệp có liên quan đến tạo thêm cái nguyên vật liệu, hay chúng ta còn gọi là công nghiệp hỗ trợ, chúng ta sẽ thu hút được nhiều hơn từ phía Hàn Quốc.
Final negotiation for an FTA between Vietnam and the Customs Union of Russia, Belarus and Kazakhstan also took place, paving the way for more Vietnamese goods to enter the three countries. Moving forwards in 2015, the country is expected to not only conclude the FTA with the EU, but also agree the TPP and the establishment of an ASEAN economic community. More opportunities in terms of trade, open market, labor markets flow will rise and provide momentum for the growing Vietnamese economy.
What will be the issues in 2014 that might still persist in 2015, which still needs to be addressed by the government to obtain better growth?
The near term, of course, the challenge still remains in the structural reform agendas, the addressing this non-performing loan issue in the banking sector, making more tangible progress in the SOE reforms and public investment reforms. But in more sort of a medium and long term, Vietnam's challenge is basically to continue to move ahead with market institutional reforms, improving its competitiveness, particularly by developing the domestic private sectors like SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises, diversifying the funding source for huge infrastructure investment by innovative approach such as the public and private partnership, and also managing the decentralization and the fiscal reform process.
Success in maintaining a stable macroeconomic pictures will create an attractive business environment for both local and foreign investors. What do you see as the pictures of the business environment in 2015 going forwards?
Obviously, there's a stable macroeconomy and also the political situation are the big advantage for Vietnam to attract FDIs.
Okay.
So I think the overall FDI figures in 2014 is very, very encouraging. Okay. But going forward, as I mentioned earlier, the Vietnam should not solely rely on the cheap labor cost to attract FDIs. There will be increasing need for high-skilled labor force, and the Vietnam should meet these needs so that they can continue to attract the FDIs. And also, the administrative procedures still needs to be streamlined. The transparency and consistency in the application of investment-related laws and policy regulation needs to be further enhanced. And also, in connection with what I had already mentioned, another major constraint potential investors sees in the Vietnamese investment environment is difficulty of local sourcing, because the local domestic sector, particularly SME, has not grown to be able to supply the materials and parts to FDI companies. So. Right. Those are the challenges.
Okay. Yeah. So what are ADB's forecasts for the Vietnamese economy in 2015?
Well, in terms of GDP growth, I think the country will continue to improve it toward 6%, unless, although to really achieve the Vietnam's potential, the growth, which is 7 to 8% per year, further and tangible progress on the structural reform will be needed. Inflation, when the domestic demand start to pick up, it might put some upward pressure on the prices.
Right.
But given the current oil prices situation, I think in 2015, inflation will remain under control, perhaps within the 5%.
Okay,
yeah.
Let's hope that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, according to the December survey by Vietnam Report conducted among 300 big enterprises here in Vietnam, 76.8% of them expected the government to continue to stabilize the macroeconomy and maintain low inflation. By achieving such targets, enterprises can better predict their business outlook, avoid risks, and be more willing to invest for long-term operations. Therefore, 2015 will be another year of challenges for policymakers to completing the jobs of maintaining macroeconomic economic stability, which they have done well in 2014. And that does it for the last editions of Bizline of 2014 here on VTV International. We would like to thank you for your support throughout the year, and on behalf of the team here in Hanoi, Happy New Year, and until next time.